Let's take a look at China. This is really interesting. And again, another what I'd call nutrition experiment in nature's laboratory. That's a term I'm borrowing from Weston A. Price. Okay, first, this is China. Once again, China. Look at the overweight and obesity combined, 15.3% in 1991. This climbed to 42% in 2015. So it almost triples, right? Look at the cancer. 495 per 100,000 in 1990. This is total major cancer incidence. All right? Where does it end up? 1,587 per 100,000 in 2017. So the cancer incidence goes up more than threefold. Now, here's what's interesting. Look how low the sugar is. 2.5% of calories, 60 to 80 calories per day. This is the 8th lowest sugar consumption in the world. All right? And it's not changing. Right? Hasn't changed in decades, while all this chronic disease is rising, right? But what about the vegetable oils? 30 calories per day in 1961, 204 calories per day in 2018, all right? So vegetable oils increased sevenfold. Sevenfold increase in vegetable oils is the cause of this. All right, how about the United States? So let's look at our nutrition experiment. This is a published, came from a published paper by Darius Motsfarian at Tufts University, who, by the way, is a believer that we should be consuming vegetable oils. But he published this, and it shows the obesity was 30.5% in 1999 in the US, and it climbed to 42.5% by 2018. And yet, look at the total energy available. It actually is slightly going down. And the total energy consumed slightly going down is what they said, is what he concluded. What happened to the energy expended? Their data showed that energy expenditure was up a little bit. So now what's going on? We can't even explain obesity with calories, no matter what you do. And I've been saying this for years. All right? It's not just about calories. So look at the vegetable oils. So back in 1900, when obesity was 1.2%, what was the vegetable oil consumption? 1 gram per day, per person per day, 1 gram. Where were we in 1961? Obesity is 13.4%. It had risen 11-fold. Vegetable oil consumption, 19 grams per day. 2018, obesity is 42.5%. What was the vegetable oil consumption? In 2010, 80 grams a day. So we went from 1 gram in 1900 to 80 grams in 2010. And with that, this obesity. So again, you see the striking correlation. So you say, well, what about the sugar? All right, let's look at that. So here's obesity. Again, 1890, obesity was 1.2% in men. Sugar consumption already in 1890, this is all proven, all published, 211 calories per day, 10.8% of calories in 1890. It was already higher than today's World Health Organization recommendation to consume less than 10% of calories as sugar. 1930, obesity is around 3 to 4%. That's interpolated data, so we don't, we're guessing because the data went from 1900 to 1960. But anyway, it's approximately that. But where's the sugar consumption? In 1930, 499 calories a day, 25% of US caloric intake, a fourth of the diet. This is back when we were pretty darn healthy, right? Now let's just jump all the way to 2018 when obesity is 42.5%. Sugar consumption is 526 calories. It's up 27 calories from the 1930 level. And it's down in terms of percentage. It's 24% because we're eating more food. So it's pretty hard to blame sugar here, right? So obesity shows a striking correlation to vegetable oils, almost no correlation, even negative to sugar. If you look at the very end, you can see sugar going down while obesity goes up, and we're gonna hit that here next. So this is, you can see on this graph that obesity was 30.5% in 1999, as we talked about before, 42.5% in 2018. But look at the sugar consumption. It's on the way down, right? So again, calories are down a little bit, sugar's down a little bit. What about carbs? Okay, so sugar falling since 2004 while obesity escalates. Here's carbohydrates in the United States. So you can see that that's 1997, obesity is 29%. Look where obesity is in 2013, 38%. But the carbohydrates are on the decline. So again, we've got a little decline in calories, we've got declining sugar, recent, and we've got declining carbohydrates, recent. Again, while obesity and diabetes, as you'll see next, go through the roof. So here's diabetes versus sugar, because you've already seen vegetable oils versus this, and we have limited time. So here's the diabetes, 0.37% in 1935. Sugar is already 22.5% of the caloric consumption. All right, let's jump to 2016. Diabetes, 13%. What's sugar? 24%. The sugar's barely changed. Now, if you look at the actual numbers, sugar's up 86 calories from 440 to 526 between these two time frames. But we're consuming more food in 2016, so that as a percentage, it's just up a little bit. It's up 1.5%. But diabetes goes up 35-fold. It's an increase of 3,400% in prevalence, diabetic prevalence, right? Here's the problem, which we talked about before. Look at the omega-6 climbing from 1.1% all the way to 11.8% by 2008. This is the problem. But we had a data analyst run a regression analysis, and because obviously sugar and vegetable oils are both climbing at the same time as obesity and diabetes, right? So the data analyst that looked at this wrote this: we assess whether this positive effect of sugar remains significant once vegetable oil consumption is adjusted for. And he wrote, in such a two-factor linear regression model, there is no significant effect of sugar consumption on the prevalence of obesity and diabetes at all. No effect once you control for the vegetable oils. He said, at the same time, vegetable oil consumption's positive effect is significant at any imaginable significance level commonly used in scientific literature, p less than 0.0001. This was done by an outside scientist, not associated with my group, our group, Eugene Antipov, PhD from Dubai. All right, let's look at Australia. This will be the last one. So first, I want to mention, here's the obesity in Australia, 9% in 1980, climbs to 31.3% in 2018. But look at the sugar, nearly a steady decline since 1961, at least for a few decades, right? And then it sort of levels off. But look at the vegetable oils. 78 calories per day in 1961, 575 calories per day in 2018. Now let's look at diabetes, and there's a short window of evidence here, but the diabetes is not as high as I would expect. 3.3% nevertheless in 2001, and 4.9% in 2018. Okay? Is it the carbohydrates, though? Well, the carbohydrates, as you can see, are also on the decline while the obesity goes through the roof. So the carbohydrates are down 200 or 300 calories per day during this, this time frame since the 1960s until, or at least around the early 2000s. You can see carbohydrates have gone down. So we ran a regression analysis for Australia, too. And this is the data scientist's words. We assess whether this positive effect of sugar remains significant once vegetable oil consumption is adjusted for. In such a two-factor linear regression model, there is no significant effect of sugar consumption on the prevalence of obesity and diabetes at all. Sounds very similar to the US, right? At the same time, vegetable oil consumption's positive effect is significant at any commonly used significance level, p less than 0.001 on this one. Okay, so in conclusion, I would submit to you that the industrial seed oils are the primary drivers, not the only drivers, but the primary drivers of obesity, diabetes, and most all of our chronic disease. I would submit that non-processed carbohydrates, especially when they're organic and they're unmodified, do not play a role in obesity, diabetes, and most chronic disease. Refined sugars and flours, these are definitely, at the very least, nutrient-deficient foods. Sure, there's a lot more to be said about that, but I think these should be greatly minimized or eliminated. But my suggestion is, of course, is an ancestral diet, which includes all of these kinds of foods potentially. all right, if they're, when well tolerated. All right, so, but take home point, whether you're carnivore or you're vegan, or keto or low carb or high carb or whatever you choose, or you're just an omnivore, the omega-6 applies to every single one of us. This is the most important consideration, I believe. So this is our mantra: seed oil free is the key to being disease free. So now we had this made. All right, I don't know if you can see this very well, but this down here at the bottom says chronic metabolic poison, which is like it does on this. And this is what you'll see on the cover of our book. So burn this into your brain, if you would, and spread this message, because this is what I believe. I've been saying this for 4 years, and I will continue to. I think that that's how dangerous these are to us. This is our new book that just came out a couple of months ago, The Ancestral Diet Revolution. I'll just say this is a shameless plug, because 100% of royalties benefit our nonprofit foundations, Ancestral Health Foundation and Cure AMD Foundation, these organizations, from which none of us that work for these organizations take any compensation at all. We're in this for the people. And so I want to thank you, Dr. Rod Taylor, wherever you are, and I want to thank everybody that's part of the Low Carb Sydney and the Low Carb Down Under organizations. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.